Good morning, everybody. Today is Monday, August 21st. I'm Hurricane Hal with your tropical weather update. I'm back in the studio today. We're going to be looking at what's happening in the tropics. Things are getting really busy, y'all. Look at this picture of the activity in the Atlantic. We have 3 named storms in the past 24 hours. That's right. We have Tropical Storm Emily, Tropical Storm Franklin, and Tropical Storm Gert. We also have an area out here with a 70% chance of tropical development. But we're going to start the broadcast this morning with Invest 91L. This is an invest in the Gulf of Mexico that now has an 80% chance of tropical development. Those potentially bring the biggest impacts to the mainland U.S. So we're going to start off the broadcast this morning talking about this invest in the Gulf of Mexico. Y'all, right now, it's a broad area of low pressure, scattered showers and thunderstorms. You can see the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico down here, Cuba's over here, and Florida's up there. Really, in the central and southern Gulf of Mexico, we have this broad area of showers and thunderstorms that is now likely to develop into a named storm as it moves to the west. Possibly a named storm, possibly a tropical depression, but it looks like some development will happen as it quickly moves to the west. Let's look at what the models are saying about this. This is a GFS, or the American model. So this model is valid as of early this afternoon, 1 p.m. Central. And you can see what's going to try to start happening by early afternoon. You see an area of low pressure there in the southern and western Gulf of Mexico. And look at these wind barbs here. These are wind barbs generally around 25 knots, so getting close to 30-mile-an-hour winds across a broad area there of the northern Gulf Coast. That'll start pushing water. That'll start pushing waves towards the coast of Louisiana and Texas. And you can see this thing is trying to get developed, but it's a pretty broad area. I guess you could say, I don't know if you say this is good news or bad news, but because it's moving to the west so rapidly at more than 15 miles an hour, it's going to run out of space and run out of time to develop. I know folks in Texas really say that we need the rain, but again, we have to be careful. The Gulf of Mexico is so warm right now. If a system like this had an extra day to develop, it could really cause some wind damage. So we are looking at this most likely developing as it moves to the west today. This is, again, the American model as of early this afternoon. And we can see what happens when we move this into time. This is the American model at about 1 a.m. on Tuesday. So this is just after midnight tonight. You can see this thing really starting to get itself better organized. A closed circulation around a well-defined center. That's what you need for a tropical cyclone. So it should become at least a tropical depression. But I think with looking at some of these wind radii, we could get sustained winds in excess of 39 miles an hour. It would make it a tropical storm and it would get a name. So again, this is just after midnight tonight. It looks like it could be getting itself, trying to get organized and really becoming better organized as it moves to the west and approaches the western Gulf of Mexico near the coast of Texas and Mexico. This is a map of the Euro model I'm going to show you next that shows a little less rigorous development. This is also just after midnight tonight at 1 o'clock a.m. Central. But again, as you look at these wind barbs and the isobars, you're seeing the forecast for a closed circulation around a well-defined center. Again, this could very well become a tropical depression or a tropical storm before moving ashore really on Monday night or on Tuesday morning. So the big concern with this, and actually the big hope with this, has been rain. 16% of Texas is under extreme drought. We desperately need the rain. A lot of these portions here along coastal Texas, Houston, Galveston corridor, Beaumont, Port Arthur, all in extreme drought right now. So the hope among locals has been, can we pick up at least several inches of rain from this system? Well, you can see the rainfall classifications there, really anything in purple over 1.5 inches of rain. The reds get over about 2 or 2.5 inches of rain. And a change since our forecast on Friday and Saturday, this has shifted a bit farther to the south. And so it looks like there will be a substantial rain band from Rockport and Corpus Christi south through the valley and getting across the Rio Grande into portions of Mexico. But look around the Houston-Galveston corridor. So we were talking before about potentially 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of rain, but that's really shifted a little bit farther south. I was saying on the broadcast on Friday that there's a tight gradient. And unfortunately for the Houston-Galveston corridor, Bolivar Peninsula over to Beaumont, Port Arthur, we're seeing a lot of light to medium greens, which unfortunately is about 1/4 of an inch or less of rain. Now, these are tropical rains, and there'll be cells with embedded showers and heavier thunderstorms. So if you're fortunate enough to have one of those thunderstorms go over your place, you could pick up 1/2 of an inch to an inch of rain in some localized areas. But unfortunately, in general, this has shifted farther south. we're no longer looking at a widespread half of an inch to an inch of rain for Houston, Galveston corridor and a lot of these populated areas. And then you get north of Houston, I don't think we'll see much rain at all. There's a pretty sharp gradient with this. But again, the story here is the heavier rains in South Texas, which they desperately need as well. I think it's good news for them. But keep in mind, anytime you're talking about tropical rains, you can get some really heavy downpours. You can get some training. So these are generalized rain accumulations, and you could see some areas getting localized more than that. Even though there's a lot of drought in Texas, you don't need 5+ inches of rain in a short amount of time. That will flood no matter where you are. So we do have to watch out for flood risk here in South Texas as well. Well, let's head back to the Atlantic and talk about what's happening with Emily, Gert, and Franklin. So Emily and Gert, let's talk about those. There's a lot of wind shear out in the Atlantic east of the Caribbean. So the winds with Gert are actually well east of the center because of wind shear, and it's going to be a short-lived storm. You can look at this likeliness of tropical storm force winds, and it's going to die out pretty quickly. This is going to be a short-lived storm. Over to Emily as well. Emily's most convection and activity is north of the center because of wind shear, and that storm looks like it's going to die out over the open waters of the Atlantic as well. Franklin, a few more impacts to land. Franklin here is a tropical storm. It's forecast to turn to the north. This is a probability of tropical storm force winds. You can see that tropical storm force winds are possible in Hispaniola, that's Haiti and the Dominican Republic, over to Puerto Rico. But again, not looking at any hurricane force winds. We don't think that this will develop into a hurricane. The wind risk, I think, will really be minimal. What would be a little more interesting here is the risk of heavy rain and flooding from Franklin, both in Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. And this is looking at the rain forecast. The big concern here is a widespread 5 to 10 inches of rain in Hispaniola with up to 15 or more inches locally. And then over in Puerto Rico, and generally looking at 2 to 4 inches of rain with some isolated areas of 6 inches. These are mountainous islands. You get heavy rain in a short amount of time, you can get some flooding, mudslides, and landslides. That's really the big concern with Franklin. As it moves through this region, it will have some impacts on land. Well, y'all, finally, we're following Hurricane Hilary, which brought tropical storm force winds to parts of Southern California. Even though it's a remnant low now in the desert Southwest, we still do have a high chance of flash flooding in California, especially east of the big cities like San Diego and Los Angeles. So watch out if you're in areas like Palm Springs, even getting up through South Central California, over across the border into Nevada, and even a moderate chance of flash flooding over to places like Las Vegas. Y'all, sometimes it takes a little while for this heavy rainfall to run off. So watch out near creeks, rivers, and streams, and also watch out for mudslides and landslides. Y'all, that's everything on the broadcast this morning. Wanted to keep it pretty short and sweet. Again, the big picture, not expecting really any catastrophic impacts in the Atlantic. I think there'll be some flooding concerns in Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. The rains in Texas mostly will do more good than harm. But again, if you see a lot of heavy rain in a short amount of time, Rockport, Corpus Christi, south through the valley, I think in general they'll get 2 to 3 inches of rain. That'll be pretty beneficial, but if you get a lot of it in a short amount of time, it could cause some flooding. Wish we had better news for the Houston-Galveston corridor. We could pick up, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch of rain with this, hopefully a little more. But if you're near one of those thunderstorm cells, you could pick up more than that, and that could help green up your backyard. It's been so dry here. Again, we've been in extreme drought. Y'all, I'll be with you every day this week. I'm going to be broadcasting 6 days a week now. We're in the heart of hurricane season, as we were saying this past weekend, and I'll be looking at the tropics with you every day. Everyone, this is Hurricane Hal signing off. Today is Monday, August 21st. Everyone have a great Monday. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning.